Okay, let's have a look at creating continuous quilting designs. I've got an example here. It's not maybe the best example, which I'll talk about later, but it will show you the principle. So if I go to the reshape tool on this design, I'll better select it first. You will see that apart from hundreds and hundreds of nodes, I have a start point and an end point, and they're on the same horizontal plane. That is, when I start here, I'm starting at, well, the easiest ways to show you is to bring down a guideline. So when I start here, sew this design, I'm going to end here on the same level. So when I place the next hooping next to it, I'll be starting at exactly the same spot that I finished the previous one. Let's just select that and grab a copy of it and put it here. And I'll just go in and nudge it to the left. And there we go, we've got a continuous design. And the reason I said it may not be the best style of design is because this is going to look like blocks of a design all the way across. Just by the nature of the way it's designed, it's going to look like square designs. It doesn't seem to flow necessarily or blend. It's going to be less likely to look like an all-over design than some other choices you might like to make, but it might have a place as well, a design like this. So basically with continuous quilting designs, you hoop up and sew one design, then you hoop up again and sew the next design next to it, and you finish a row across your quilt. And then you will start another row underneath. So if I select these two here, I can bring them down and place them. I would space them about the same distance apart as they are sideways. I'll try and get it as close as possible, just roughly, and we can now see that we're getting an all-over design. It's up to you. It's always a good idea after you've created your design to put them together to see if you like the flow of them. If I go to one-to-one, you can see that it's probably not too bad actually. Let's get my panning hand and have a look. It's just this join here that is going to join the two, but you could have equally with this style of design had not had this start and end point on each end. It could be a closed off design, and you could, so long as you aligned them, it would give you the overall look of this without these little lines here. So that's why I'm saying as a continuous design it may or may not be the best choice. But the principle is there. If I undo all those placements and go to fit and run the stitch player, and I'll just speed that up a little bit. I'm going to pause that and take off the outline because that's confusing us, but you can see when we play it that it's going to stitch all of this design before it finishes over here. Okay, so that's the principle. Now, so the main thing is to start at the same point on the horizontal plane as you're going to finish, I should say, on the same point as you started. It doesn't have to be through the middle of the design. You could put your guideline for starting and finishing anywhere. Could be up there, and you could come in here, do all your quilting and come out over here. If this start was back a little bit, there wouldn't be any gap between. So this start is actually determining, if I bring a vertical line down, it's determining how much gap there is between one motif and the next. I'll just zoom out a little bit. So the edge of this motif here is here, and if I have this extending, there will be a slight gap here between these two motifs. If I started right on the same line, then the next motif would actually touch this point here. So how far out you extend also has an effect on the spacing and the layout of your design. You could, in fact, do your whole design vertically. Depends how your brain works. So you could move this line across here somewhere and say, well, I want to start here and end here, and do my units vertically down. And you could do a border like that. That would be good. If you weren't going to do the whole quilt, but it could still be continuous so long as you started at the same point on the vertical axis and finished on the same point. Alright, so we've got the basic principles of a continuous embroidery design. Now you can create this in the creator level or the designer plus level, or you can create a continuous quilting embroidery design, because basically all it is your open object, single outline. And you will start, as I said, wherever you decide. So let's say we're going to start in the middle somewhere. You would left click here and then start creating your quilt design in the middle here. Left and right clicking to create lines, and then end up over here. If you aren't confident about creating your designs on the fly, you can bring an image in as a backdrop. You could, in the creator level as well, you can bring that in with your load an image, insert artwork. So you could bring some artwork in and you could trace around it. Now your artwork, you could find something on the internet, or you could draw something on a piece of paper, and if you have a scanner, and scan that in and save it as a JPEG on your computer somewhere and load it in. For those of you with drawing software and those of you with Designer Plus has got your Corel in the form of art canvas or standalone. So if you're familiar with using that, you could create your design in that software, part of the software. Or if you have only got if you've only got the creator level, you may have another drawing program. Inkscape is a free drawing program, for instance, that you could use to create your drawing in and then save that as a format that will load. So in your insert artwork formats, you have got, you can have bitmaps, JPEGs, PNGs, WMFs, EMFs, EPSs, and CDRs. So you can save your artwork in any of those formats and they will be able to be loaded into embroidery canvas. And then you can click, I'll cancel that, you could click around and follow your lines in your artwork. Those of you with Designer Plus can actually convert your artwork to the embroidery, and that's what I did in this case. I created the artwork in Corel and made sure that it was one continuous line and that its direction was going from left to right, and then I just hit the convert button and I had the stitches. So there are many ways to do something. I'm going to just show you a few as we go through. This will be a series of videos because creator level, I'll start with something basic creator level can do, and then I'll move on to more complex designs that you can create in, well, you can create more complex designs, but there are some tools in Designer Plus that will help you to achieve those in a more efficient manner. Okay, let's get rid of these guidelines. In fact, let's just close that design. No. Right. So let's start our design. Now, before you even start, you need to decide on the size you're going to make your quilt block or quilting design, and that will depend a lot on the size of hoop you have. So the bigger the hoop, the more likely it is that you won't notice the transition from one continuous quilt embroidery to the next. If you have a small hoop, you're going to be limited in the size of your design, and therefore you will only have maybe a couple of motifs or a bit of a wiggly line, and it will repeat so often it will look like a repeat. So try and use the biggest hoop you've got. What have I put in here? I think I've put the Bernina jumbo hoop, which is 256 by 400. You could now, my desktop hasn't updated yet, but my laptop has. The latest update to the software has included the new hoops for the Bernina 990. So you could be designing for that hoop too, or you can make a custom hoop. If you've got an off-brand machine, you can load those hoops in as well. Most of them will be here. If your hoop is not here in this list, then or your machine's not here, and then when you go into the machine you can't find your hoop, again you can make a custom hoop to the size you want. Just to give you an idea of how big you can create your design. Now then, I strongly suggest you don't make your design to go right to the edges of the hoop, because if you need to jog your machine to line up precisely where your needle is going to penetrate for the first stitch after you've done the first embroidery and you re-hoop, you may need to slightly adjust the positioning of your design in the hoop to make it match up perfectly. Also, you may need to rotate the design slightly so that you can keep it level with the previous design. It's difficult to get your hooping absolutely perfect. If you haven't got some sort of pinpoint placement or precise positioning, as it's called in some other brands of machines, where you can rotate the design to fit, to line up, then you will have to move the fabric a little bit to reposition to ensure that you're perfectly straight. But those of you who are going to use a pinpoint placement or precise positioning, or even if your design is just, it's straight enough, but it's just a little bit too far over to the left or right, then if you've got a little bit of wiggle room, you can jog your design across so that the needle actually penetrates where the last motif finished. So, having said that, we're then going to create an area, a block size. Now in creator level, I'll start with Designer Plus has a show quilt block setting, and that's up here at the top right. Now you haven't got that in creator. I'll show you what to do if you haven't got that in a moment, but Designer Plus users can just click on that and you'll get a quilt block here. Now if you right click, you can actually set the size of that. So what was the size of that hoop? Let me just cancel out of that and check. So my hoop is 256 by 400. Let's say we're going to work with squares. You could work with rectangles, but we'll work with squares. So let's say we're going to work with a square. Let's give ourselves, let's make it 240 by 240, which will just give us some space around the edge of the hoop to wiggle with. So we'll go OK, and in this quilt block we'll change this, we'll unlock the lock because we want them to stay. This one was a square, so we'll put 240. Of course, this is for an overall, over your whole quilt, so it doesn't need to relate to your block sizes of your actual quilt, unless if you want to do just a block size embroidery, then if the block's too big for your hoop, you might want to divide that up into 4 or something so that you can do this procedure. So you can just quilt that block in 4 steps so that that looks like it's all done in one. I'm just going to go okay on that. So we've now got a 240 by 240 and it just fits in the corners. So that's something to bear in mind because the hoops are not rectangular for the Berninas. They have got curved ends. Alright, so we can hide the hoop now because we've now got a space for our design to go on. Now, if you've got the creator level, you can't do that. But what you can do is create a rectangle as a guide. So you can left click on your rectangle, hold down your control key so that it will actually make a rectangle. Make sure you've got outline selected and choose a color that you're not going to use for your design. So we might make it red, and hold your control key down and drag a rectangle. Don't worry about the size right now. And when you, well, a square it is because you've got your control key held down, and then let go of your mouse and, whoops, sorry, you do have to left click at the other point. So click when you've got your square and then you can let go of your control key. Now you can size that up here. So I'm going to select that design. It's in the color film because it's stitches. And we can go up here and we can set here our size to 240. And we've got our lock locked, so it's going to stay proportional, and hit enter. And there's our rectangle and it's the same size as the quilt block. So you can work inside that if you've got the creator level. I'm going to continue working inside this one, so I'll just delete that now. And I'm going to zoom to fit. Sorry, 1 to 1 is a bit big, so then I'll scroll out. Right. Now, if you don't like that blue colour as a background, you can change the colour of that too. So here you can pick a colour. So you might want to pick orange, for instance. Okay, and it's a little less obtrusive, but you can still see it. Now the next thing is to bring in your guideline. So now is that centered? Yes, it seems to be centered. So I can bring in a guideline down to, whoops, that's a vertical one. I want a horizontal one. If I bring that down to the naught, that will be going across the center of the hoop. If you want to get it really accurate, zoom in, because you'll see as you zoom in that what you think's on the 0 line is not. So let's just move it back up to the 0 line, and then we're in the middle. Okay, so then it's a matter of getting an open object, as I said, a single outline. Let's make it the dark blue default color so it shows up, and we can start there. Now you can see I was way off because I wasn't zoomed in, so I'll go back and or actually I'll zoom in and backspace to get rid of that first click and get right on that line there. Now it doesn't matter whatever I do now in here, so long as I end up over here. So I'm just going to very roughly do a curvy line. I want to fill in this corner. It's kind of a huge big stipple, but this is just to give you the idea of what you can do. Now I need to go down here somewhere. Whoops, backspace. And then up through the middle here. And of course you can reshape this. Just backspace there. I'll have to reshape that to fit it into the square. And now I'm over here, I need to get on that guideline, and it's red. It turned red because I have my snap 2s on. So if I go to the settings, machine and hope, no, general. Grid. Snap to guides. Under the grid tab in options, if you've got snap to guides selected, it will snap to that horizontal line. So then it's only a matter of making sure by zooming in that you're actually where you want to be on the at the edge of the square. So if I select that and go to the reshape tool, I can then grab that end point and bring it right to the edge of the quilt guide. Now up here I would have to put another node in there so I can bring that in. Down here I didn't like this bit, so I can move this node here. That's better. So that would be the most basic of all continuous quilting designs. Now if I select that and bring a copy of it off and get that lined up, you can see my first click wasn't very accurate, so I'm going to undo or delete that one and check over here again. Select this one and reshape. Make sure I'm on that red line. Okay, select, drag a copy over. This is one thing to look for. We're going to get this funny little kink here when we do our next design because of the angle that this stitch came in and that one. So if you're coming up this way from at the end, then your start should go up a little bit too. So I will select this one, go to the reshape and put in another node and take it up that way. And I'm going to make sure that that's there. Okay, now we've got a nice smooth line running from one to the other. So all I need to do now is select this one. I'm going to change its colour to turquoise, and I'm going to bring it back over the top of this one. And just get that lined up properly. Okay, so now I know I can reshape the dark blue one to match that one at this end. So we'll get reshape tool, and I remembered I put another node in there. So now that matches close enough. I've got that a little bit off, but I will still get that nice smooth flow then between the two designs. Select, and I can delete my turquoise one. So as you can see, when I finish this one and start the next one's going to be going up that way as well. So there's a place to start. The next video will be for both Creator and Designer Plus level again, because I'm going to show you how to put some motifs in here rather than just having a stipple.